Metallica.
Metallica.
Well, Metallica.
Metallica, baby. Metallica.
Metallica, Enter Sandman. You know, all the shit that they hate you playing at Guitar Center.
I mean, one riff that just out of nowhere is one of the most economical riffs I've ever heard, and so fun because I can really hear James laughing when he came up with it. Is the like that's funny. That's funny. That's a funny riff. James Hetfield is definitely one of the best guitar players that has ever walked this earth. Even though I know sort of theoretically how to play Master of Puppets, it's impossible to play downstrokes the way that he does from start to finish for 7 minutes. Truly mind-blowing.
And Hetfield, of course, too, you know, with like...
Once you started playing guitar, what was the first song you learned?
First song I learned, well, besides Electric Funeral.
Was that so what?
The
was
first
the song
full song? Yeah, the
and
first full song I learned, I worked my ass off, dude. It was... Once I learned how to play that riff, it was game over. If I showed up at a Buddy's or Guitar Center and I went... It was like, dude, that was it.
Yeah.
So that was the riff. It was Seek and Destroy.
Oh yeah, how could I forget Seek and Destroy?
Whenever my dad was around, I'd ask him for some pointers on certain things. I remember I tried learning anesthesia pulling teeth. And I asked my dad to kind of help me out with that since he knew it.
Made me to want to play guitar was just the little piece from the song Seek and Destroy from Metallica. This piece. When I listened this, it was completely crazy, and I thought I really need to play this entire riff. And then I learned this. I love this riff.
I pretty quickly started gravitating towards the metal stuff. I seem to have more fun and want to stick with guitar more when my fingers are moving more, so Metallica, you know, pretty obvious one. I got the Kill 'Em All tab book, and I was really stoked on this song, Seek and Destroy.
The first two riffs I ever actually learned on guitar, I think it's a toss-up between Black Sabbath Paranoid and Metallica Seek and Destroy. It goes like this. You know, when you're a beginner, you don't know really much about, you know, little inflections you could add on it, like a little... So, you know, I was playing it real simple, like...
So when I started playing guitar about a year ago, the first song I learned how to play all the way through was Ride the Lightning with Metallica. Ride the Lightning by Metallica. Yeah, the whole Ride the Lightning album's awesome. And, you know, when you get to that one riff that's right there in the middle. Of course, nobody wants to play it like that. Everybody wants to go.
It was a lot of the usual suspects, really. You know, I just fell in love with playing Fade to Black. You know.
What was the first song you learned
First
on
song,
that guitar?
It was on that guitar. It was definitely "From the Bell Tolls" by Metallica.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, you know, it's just so simple that. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
yeah. It was just a simple rung out chords and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And they had that little bit of chunky puzzle. Something like that.
Was Metallica the early influence?
Yeah, I mean, I used to watch. I remember the live video for it's Live Shit Binge and Purge from the Injustice tour.
Sure.
And I just obsessively just watch it and watch his right hand down picking everything.
Yep.
Because that's kind of learned top down pick a lot, and I didn't realise you go up as well.
Right.
So I was just watching James Hetfield's hands.
It's great.
I like the bass players who have kind of melodic aspect in their playing, because obviously Metallica was a big thing, and Cliff Burton, come on, like the most classic For Whom the Bell Tolls. That's kind of simple, just chromatic thing there, but it's fantastic. Good job again.
I think I basically learned, you know, the basis of heavy metal guitar playing from Metallica, and I had like a book of basically a compilation of like all their, you know, best riffs, so to speak, and I learned a lot from those. So yeah, it's like fucking Creepy Death, and that was one of my favorite songs, I think, growing up as a kid.
A lot of the stuff I played while I was learning was Metallica. I liked Creeping Death a lot. Everyone knows that. It's pretty awesome.
I remember coming across Fade to Black, but the opening clean riff on the guitar, it confused me. This is what I struggled with. So it started out with 2-4-0 on the A, D, and G strings, which is this. And I fell in love with that sound. And it made me want to learn it. So as soon as I played that, I fell in love with it. But then, oh no, there's another note there. I look in the book, it says 5 on the A string. So, me being a new guitarist, I did this. And for quite a while, I did not know how to go from 4 to 5 here. I know it seems stupid now thinking back, but I decided instead of using my pinky finger here, I'd use my ring finger. And I remember this feeling, to this day, I remember the feeling of figuring out that, holy shit, my little finger is free to do that. And I remember just being so excited to figure out the most simple solution to something.
So like around that moment of time, what's the riff in particular that kind of when you hear it, you go right back to that moment when you're jamming with some of your friends for the first time?
Probably Master of Puppets.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, just the main riff, like, I remember just playing that and thinking it was like the best thing ever. Like, and learning to use my little finger and stuff, because it's like stepping up and that, and yeah, it was just a sick song to learn and jam.
The first riff or a song that we tried to adapt to metal a cappella style, or where I tried, was actually Master of Puppets. Master of Puppets was the first riff where I really tried to imitate that guitar sound with my voices, like. So we took these downstrokes here, single note with a power chord combination, and then try to sing it like and so on. For battery, we really sung the riff in a clean voice, like and so on. And we distorted our voice then with a guitar amplifier. And later, or nowadays, when we play battery live, then it's really that the distortion comes from the voice itself, like battery run, and so on.
And then when I learned Battery by Metallica, that like really honed in my like right hand technique. So just getting the So yeah, that riff is responsible for getting my right hand chops up to speed, and just learning how to do. As soon as I could do that, just yeah, the world was my riff oyster.
We might, in that same high school thing, we might have done stuff like. Not the entirety of Metallica's Battery, but like the intro parts where we were doing kind of like, that's awesome. And then again, it would get to the solo parts and it would just completely devolve.
And I remember seeing the tab book for Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning. So the opening riff, the descending notes, was the first thing I learned, but the second riff, was the one that I really spent time on.
So sometimes I would plug up like some kind of shitty MP3 player or something like that, and I would play along to the songs that I heard. And as soon as I was able to like follow shit, like and like do it and hit it on time with what was going on, that's when I was getting stoked about playing.
Obviously, like a lot of other people when I started playing, and still are to this day, Metallica was my all-time favorite band. So I bought the Master of Puppets tab book, and I think that was the first album that I learned from front to back, like with leads and rhythms and everything like that. And the first album I learned that I like felt really accomplished when I learned all the riffs from it. So I think Master of Puppets, every time I think of just the song in general, it is the one that reminds me of when I first started playing guitar. So I would have to go with like the main riff to that, the intro riff to Master of Puppets, which is like, goes a little bit something like this.
I'm a huge hard rock and metal guy, and my first real influence was Jason Newsted. That's kind of the era I came up with in Metallica. Metallica being my main influence. This little ditty from song off the Master of Puppets record. Just this little interlude piece. But that part, that little melody piece from Orion, that whole piece of music is hands down one of my favorites. But just that little interlude part, I love. I still do to this day.
Some of the albums that that I spent time trying to learn their stuff was Rush, Kiss, Metallica, of course, Clifford Lee Burton. My favorite Cliff Burton riff, well, Orion. I mean, that's probably every bass player's go-to, I guess. But it's f***ing awesome. Great stuff. You can just play those couple notes and it's simple, right? Lays a nice foundation for those bendy leads to go over top of.
Master of Puppets. Riding on me, you can't see a thing. Just call my name, cause I'll be screaming.
I love to play growing up, and apart from all the old Iron Maiden stuff, was of course classic stuff like Master of Puppets. I know James Hetfield does that with downpicking, but yeah, I won't attempt that here today.
So when I was a kid, my older brother Dan used to listen to metal upstairs, and I always heard this song about a sanitarium, and it turned into one of my favorite songs from my favorite records, Master of Puppets, and Welcome Home Sanitarium. Last time we were here, I played that on the little Hello Kitty guitar, but yeah, that riff is one of my very first riffs I ever played.
I was a massive Metallica fan, just like pretty much everyone else who was into heavy music. My favourite album was And Justice for All. For me, it was like a stepping stone between the hardcore music I used to listen to when I was younger, and then the progressive metal stuff I got into at a later date. So that was like a stepping stone for me. It was like a gateway drug almost to the more sophisticated side of metal. So a couple of riffs that I really loved were from Harvester of Sorrow, so I'm going to try and play those. I also love The One, so I'm going to try and play that one. Here we go.
A big one for me is Harvester of Sorrow by Metallica, and a lot has to do with not only the kind of precision and the evilness of the riff, but that song has a particular groove that's unique to Metallica. Metallica, baby.
Also couldn't play any Metallica when I was like 9, 10 years old, except I could play.
I was gonna say, I got that much into one, and then when it got to the like a
The first song that made me want to pick up a guitar and learn it was when I heard Dyer's Eve by Metallica. The fast riff after the intro, it blew me away, and I wanted to understand how you can make that sound on a guitar. And at the time, I could not play it, but that's the riff that made me sit up and think, ooh, I want to play that. At the time, all I could do was... This is the riff that made me pick up, or want to pick up the guitar.
So the first riff I learned on guitar, Metallica, Enter Sandman, you know, all the shit that they hate you playing at Guitar Center.
Is there a particular Metallica riff that kind of stands out as like kind of like that moment in time?
I mean, like I guess like the first riff I learned by them that I thought was like that I could actually play. Do you know what I mean? When you begin was like doesn't know like Enter Sandman or something, just like the. And then like that was like super good because I think it's like they've got everything from like a beginner. You can play it, and then as you get better you can progress and learn more of the songs and stuff. So it's a sick riff to learn when you're like starting out and all that stuff. But it also helps like learning to palm mute and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think that was like the first one I actually could play.
I don't know if it was the first riff that made me want to play guitar, but the first riff I remember hearing that just made my mind explode and just filled me with some kind of energy and excitement. The riff that made me want to play guitar for the rest of my life and do it for a living was Through the Never by Metallica. It just had so much energy and so much aggression. I remember being a kid and hearing it for the first time and just bouncing up and down in my bed being like, this is insane. Just, you know, like... Just sick riff.
The first riff or song that ever made me want to play guitar was Enter Sandman. I think that changed a lot of people's lives. Metallica and the Black Album, and it was super dark, it was super heavy, it was like a recording sort of sound that people hadn't heard sort of before. It was super heavy anyway, and I think it changed the course of heavy metal for a lot of people my age at the time. They had that snarl.
When you were a young kid, before you were a guitar player, before you actually picked up the 7-string, what was the riff? What was the song that you were compelled to learn guitar off of?
Real basic answer here, but Metallica is my favorite band of all time. And I think that this might be every single kid's first riff, but the Enter Sandman riff, that guy was like probably the first riff I ever learned.
What was the first solo you learned?
First solo, ooh. You know, I think it was Metallica, Nothing Else Matters or something like that.
Yeah.
Because that was also very easy to play, you know. So wait. So stuff like that, you know, this was probably the first solo that was like, whoa, I can
I fell in love so hard with the Black Album, but weirdly enough, the specific riff that I remember I heard and encouraged me to ask my dad to buy me a guitar was from Don't Tread on Me. That riff just has this serious swagger. It's down on the open E, just all balls and no bullshit, and just smacks you in the face. It's like walking down the street and swinging your hips as your massive dick is just going from side to side.
The first riff that I heard that made me want to play guitar was probably Enter Sandman. And I just thought that that was like the coolest thing ever. But yeah, that actually inspired me to sell my PlayStation, sell my bike, sell some Pokemon cards, and go out and get my first setup.
Being very inexperienced, just when I started playing the guitar and learning parts, I just wanted to learn the parts that sounded cool. So I learned that. I learned My Friend of Misery, God That Failed. I love that riff, and I always remember when I first heard that riff, when I first bought that album and listened to it. I was obviously big into wrestling, and I remember it was early teenager, and I remember going like, that's going to be my entrance music. Just that bass and that drum, I was like, that just, I pictured myself as just some big badass walking to the ring. That wasn't the case, especially when I started. But I was like, that's such cool entrance music. I mean, look at the history of pro wrestling. The best entrance music has been heavy metal. Hands down.
I specifically remember sitting in my 5th grade classroom and my teacher, Miss Roop, put the Virginia Hokies / Enter Sandman mix up on the TV, and she was like, this song is awesome and so is this team. And I just remember hearing the dun 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 dun. And my little ears just perked up, and I was like, this is the best thing I've ever heard in my life. And so from that point on, I was a big Metallica fan. I pieced it together because I think at 5th grade, I was just like not equipped to like go out and find out who Metallica was, but I knew I really liked that song. And so then when I was in 8th grade, I had another teacher play Saint Anger, and I was like, well, this is interesting. And he was like, yeah, this is Metallica. And I was like, the same one that did the... And he was like, yeah. So slowly from 8th grade, I just became more and more interested in it. And I think by 9th grade, literally the whole year, I only listened to Metallica. And that is not a joke.